Imagine waking up in your own home. The morning light is, streaming in. You feel completely sane, like well rested.
Right, just a normal morning.
Exactly. But then you look down and you realize your hands are they're covered in blood.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And as your eyes adjust, you see it's not, some monster's blood. It's the blood of your own family.
That is incredibly dark.
It is. And the worst part, you have absolutely no memory of how it happened. Now, this isn't a pitch for a psychological horror movie.
Right.
This is the true origin story of the greatest hero of the ancient world. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are asking you to just forget the animated movies.
Oh, definitely.
Forget the gleaming breastplates and, the perfectly moral marble statues you associate with Hercules.
Because that's just not who he was.
Not even close. We're pulling from Edith Hamilton's classic work, Mythology, specifically diving into ancient heavyweights like Ovid, Euripides, and Apollodorus.
The original source material, yeah.
Exactly. Our mission here is to extract the raw, volatile, and deeply emotional truth about this famous strongman. We want to understand what his chaotic life tells us about the human condition.
It really is a phenomenal text to explore. And if you look at my background right now, you'll notice the visual shift from a pristine, sun-drenched Greek amphitheater.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's morphing into this chaotic, storm-tossed, starry sky. And that is deliberate.
Setting the mood.
Because fundamentally, the original blueprint of Hercules is not a straightforward adventure story at all. It is a profound exploration of, well, guilt, desperate penance, and the incredibly destructive nature of unchecked power.
Unchecked power. Okay, let's unpack this. Because my perception of a Greek hero is usually someone like Theseus.
Sure.
Solving riddles, showing compassion, outsmarting the villain. If Theseus is this finely tuned intellectual engine, Hercules seems, I don't know, vastly different. What exactly was he?
I'm really glad you brought up Theseus, actually, because to understand Hercules, you really must understand the contrast.
Okay.
Theseus was the patron hero of Athens. And Athens was a unique city-state, right? They valued intellect, philosophy, the ability to think through complex moral problems.
Right, the great thinkers.
Exactly. But the rest of ancient Greece, they lived in a brutal, highly unpredictable world filled with very real, very physical threats.
Monsters, wild beasts, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So they respected intellect, sure, but they revered undeniable, world-shaping physical power. They needed someone who could literally rip the danger out of their environment.
So he was essentially like a human boiler with a broken pressure valve.
A broken pressure valve.
Yeah, like the slightest heat turns instantly into explosive action, completely without any intellectual filtration.
I'd actually push back on calling him a boiler, to be honest.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, a boiler implies a system that is eventually meant to do useful, regulated work. Hercules, in his early days, was more like a localized natural disaster.
Wow, okay. A natural disaster.
Yeah, and he had a literal god-tier confidence to match. He was so strong that he actually helped the Olympian gods conquer the brutish giants.
He fought alongside the gods.
He did. Because his arrows were a key part of that cosmic victory, he genuinely considered himself on equal footing with the gods themselves.
Wait, he thought he was equal to the gods?
He really did.
How does that even play out in a society where the gods are known for smiting people just for looking at them wrong?
Well, it leads to some staggering displays of audacity. There is this defining moment at the oracle at Delphi.
Okay.
Now, for context, the oracle wasn't just, a fortune teller. In the ancient world, the oracle spoke the absolute binding law of the universe. Kings would halt wars based on her words.
Huge deal.
Right. So Hercules goes to ask a question, and the priestess, for whatever reason, gives no response.
I'm guessing a normal person would fall to their knees, pray harder, maybe, I don't know, leave an offering.
Exactly. But Hercules simply reaches over, seizes the sacred tripod the priestess is sitting on, and declares he is going to carry it off and set up his own oracle.
Are you serious? He was going to start a rival prophecy franchise.
Yes.
That is insane. Does he get struck by lightning?
Well, Apollo actually has to physically intervene.
No way.
Yeah, they get into a wrestling match over the tripod, and Zeus has to literally throw a thunderbolt between them to break it up.
That is wild.
But what's fascinating here is that Hercules wasn't acting out of malice or, blasphemy. He just had a simple, goal-oriented drive.
He wanted an answer.
He wanted an answer. He didn't get one.
Yeah.
So he applied physical force. Apollo actually ends up admiring this undaunted boldness and just tells the priestess to give him the prophecy.
Oh, so it worked. It sounds like he fundamentally did not understand how the universe worked outside of his own physical influence.
Not at all.
Like, if there was an obstacle, his only mechanism for solving it was to hit it. But that has to go wrong eventually, right? When that impulse collides with human fragility.
Oh, it goes horribly wrong. His mind was incredibly limited, but his emotions were massive and instantly aroused.
Give me an example.
Well, if he was too hot, he would literally point his bow and arrow at the sun and threaten to shoot it.
Shoot the sun!
Yeah. If his boat was tossed by waves, he would yell at the ocean, threatening to punish the water.
He's literally yelling at the sea.
Right. And tragically, as a boy, when he didn't want to learn music, he flew into a sudden rage and struck his music master with his lute.
Wait, and what happened to the master?
The master died.
Just from a single impulsive strike.
Yes. He didn't mean to kill him. He was just totally unaware of his own lethal capacity.
That's horrifying.
He felt terrible afterward, but the core issue remained. He had this total lack of emotional regulation. And that specific vulnerability is exactly what a deeply resentful god decided to exploit.
Oh, okay. Enter Hera, the queen of the gods. Now, I know she hated him from day one because he was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, Alcmena.
Yes, exactly.
She even sent, like, 2 massive deadly snakes into his crib when he was an infant.
Which Hercules casually strangled, by the way.
As a baby.
As a baby.
Yeah.
Just laughing while holding a limp snake in each hand.
See, that is terrifying.
It is. And Hera realized very quickly that she couldn't beat him from the outside. Nothing physical could destroy him. So she had to attack him from the inside.
Bypassing his physical invulnerability entirely.
Exactly.
This brings us back to that horrifying scenario we started the show with. Hercules is an adult. He's a champion of Thebes. He's happily married to Princess Megara. They have 3 beautiful sons.
Right.
What exactly does Hera do to him?
She sends a sudden, blinding madness upon him.
Mm-hmm.
It completely overtakes his consciousness.
Okay.
In this uncontrollable frenzy, perceiving them as enemies, Hercules brutally murders his wife and all 3 of his children.
Oh, man.
And then, as quickly as it came, Hera lifts the madness. Tenity returns.
So he wakes up in his own blood-stained hall, surrounded by the bodies of his family with absolutely no memory of doing it. To him, just a moment ago, they were all talking together.
It's unfathomable.
When his earthly father, Amphitryon, tells him the horrific truth, Hercules doesn't make excuses, right? He immediately resolves to kill himself. He says, "I will avenge upon myself these deaths."
Which brings us to what the ancient sources call a miracle.
A miracle, like divine intervention.
No, actually. It's the miracle of human friendship.
Ah.
Theseus, the intellectual hero of Athens we discussed earlier.
Right, the contrast.
He arrives at the blood-soaked scene.
And what Theseus does here is mind-blowing. He stretches out his hands and clasps Hercules' blood-stained hands. He tells him, "Men great of soul can bear the blows of heaven and not flinch."
Yeah.
But wait, why is it such a big deal just to hold his hand like he's his friend?
To understand this, we really have to look at how the ancient Greeks viewed guilt. For us, guilt is a legal status or maybe a mental feeling.
Sure, yeah.
But in ancient Greece, guilt for murder was a literal physical stain. They called it miasma. Think of it like a highly contagious spiritual virus. If you touched a murderer, you caught the miasma. You were defiled.
So people would naturally flee from a murderer.
Exactly. But Theseus, being a philosopher, recognizes that Hercules is not morally guilty. He was out of his mind. He was merely a weapon wielded by Hera.
Right.
So Theseus offers him a home in Athens and completely pardons him intellectually.
So the intellectual hero essentially says, legally and morally, you are clear, come stay with me.
He does.
But here's my question. How does a man of action, a guy who solves literally every problem with his fists, process a philosophical pardon like that?
That is the crux of his tragedy. He doesn't.
He doesn't process it.
No. Theseus could excuse the murder intellectually, but Hercules' simplistic nature only knew feeling. He couldn't think his way out of a spiritual virus.
Wow.
He felt defiled. He needed a physical punishment to match his physical crime.
You know, have you ever made a mistake so terrible that someone saying, "I forgive you," just wasn't enough? That you felt you actually needed to suffer physically to make it right. That is the exact psychological trap Hercules is in.
Perfectly said.
So he leaves Athens and goes to the oracle at Delphi to seek a physical purification. And she sends him to his cousin, King Eurystheus of Mycena, to submit to whatever penance the king demands.
And Eurystheus, who is secretly being advised by Hera, devises the infamous 12 labors.
The 12 labors.
Now, these weren't just difficult tasks. They were designed to be impossible. They were designed to be a lethal trap.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. He treats this penance like an extreme mythological escape room.
That's a great way to put it.
He is told to do the impossible, and he just accepts it. Let's look at how these labors actually function, because they perfectly mount onto his psychology. Take the first labor, the Nemean lion. No weapons could pierce its skin.
Exactly. The mechanism of the task is that tools are useless. So Hercules relies on pure brute force.
Just brute force.
Yeah, he corners the beast, drops his weapons, and literally chokes the life out of it with his bare hands. But, and this is important, he wasn't always just a solitary tank.
Right. The second labor, the Hydra. This swamp monster where chopping off one head causes two more to sprout. This is a labor of pure attrition.
Right.
And he actually realizes he can't win alone. He needs his nephew Iolaus to follow behind him with a burning torch.
To sear the neck stumps, to cauterize the wounds so the heads can't regrow.
Yeah.
We also see flashes of a very pragmatic physical cleverness. For the fifth labor, he is ordered to clean the Augean stables in a single day.
A single day.
These stalls held thousands of cattle and hadn't been cleaned in years. The sheer volume of filth was meant to humiliate and break him.
So does he just grab a shovel and start digging incredibly fast?
Well, instead of shoveling, he physically tears open the sides of the stables, reroutes the courses of two massive nearby rivers.
Just moves the rivers.
Literally forces the water to flood through the complex, washing out decades of filth in a matter of hours.
That is brilliantly destructive. But right alongside that cleverness is his tragic impulsivity. I'm thinking of the ninth labor, gonna get the girdle of Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons.
Yes. This is where Hera's interference is the most devastating.
What happens?
Well, Hippolyta actually respects Hercules. She meets him kindly and agrees to simply hand over the girdle. She is going to let him pass the test easily.
Oh, wow.
But Hera, seeing this, disguises herself as an Amazon and spreads a rumor that Hercules is there to abduct the queen. So the Amazons attack his ship.
And how does Hercules react? Does he stop and ask Hippolyta what's going on?
Of course not.
No. Without a single thought of how kind she had been to him just moments prior, his mind instantly jumps to betrayal. He kills her on the spot, grabs the girdle, and fights his way out.
Yeah, he doesn't investigate at all. He just perceives a threat and eliminates it.
But perhaps the most conceptually fascinating labor is the 11th, the golden apples.
Oh, the golden apples, yes.
Yeah. He doesn't know where they are, so he seeks out the Titan Atlas, who is condemned to hold the entire weight of the sky on his shoulders.
Right.
Hercules offers a trade. He says, I will hold the sky if you go fetch the apples. Atlas agrees, retrieves the apples, but then he experiences the freedom of not holding the crushing weight of the heavens.
Naturally.
He decides he doesn't want the sky back. He tells Hercules, you just keep holding it. I'll take the apples to the king.
This is where Hercules actually outwits a Titan.
Yeah.
The mechanism of this trick is just so good. He doesn't rage or threaten, he agrees. But he says, sure, I'll take over the shift. Just take the sky back for 1 single second so I can put a pad on my shoulders to ease the pressure.
And Atlas just falls for it.
Somehow, falling for this, Atlas takes the sky back. Hercules simply scoops up the apples and walks away.
Wow.
But the craziest part of all these labors is that, despite the humiliation, the danger, and the sheer unfairness,
Yeah.
he never rebels against the punishment itself.
He never complains.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is Edith Hamilton's core thesis on what made him truly great.
Okay.
It wasn't his courage. Courage is easy when you are overwhelmingly strong and know you practically can't be physically beaten.
That makes sense.
His true greatness was his immense sorrow for his wrongdoing and his boundless willingness to do absolutely anything to expiate that physical stain of guilt.
He just takes the punishment. But even in the middle of this profound spiritual journey, his core personality never changes.
Not at all.
He's still loud, simple, and quick to extreme emotion. There's a story right in the middle of these labors that I like to call the oblivious tavern brawly incident.
Oh, yes.
He makes a pit stop on his way to steal some man-eating horses.
You're referring to the Mythis incident from Euripides.
Right.
To understand the stakes here, you really have to understand the ancient Greek laws of xenia or guest friendship.
It was a big deal.
It was a sacred obligation. If a traveler knocked on your door, you had to take them in, feed them, and protect them because the gods themselves protected travelers. Turning a guest away could literally bring down the wrath of Zeus.
That context is crucial because Hercules arrives at the home of King Mythis, Now, Mythis is in the middle of a horrific tragedy.
Yes.
His wife, Alcestis, has just died to save his life. She literally offered herself to the fates in his place.
Which is a whole other crazy story.
Right. So the entire household is plunged into deep, wailing mourning. But when Hercules knocks, Admetus adheres so strictly to the rules of Xenia that he lies.
Yeah.
He hides his mourning attire and tells Hercules, "Oh, a stranger has died, no one important. Please, come stay in the guest wing."
So Hercules, taking him completely at his word, settles into the guest room. And because he is Hercules, he doesn't just quietly relax. He proceeds to get obnoxiously roaring drunk.
He is devouring entire banquets of food, chugging wine, and belting out these completely inappropriate, joyful songs at the top of his lungs.
And literally one room over, the servants are weeping over the corpse of their beloved queen.
Yeah. He even yells at the servants who bring him wine, telling them to stop looking so gloomy and have a drink with him.
Finally, a servant cannot take the disrespect anymore. He snaps and tells Hercules the truth. He says it wasn't a stranger, it was Alcestis, our queen.
And instantly, the switch flips. The drunkenness evaporates. Hercules is crushed with a massive weight of shame.
Yeah.
He realizes he has been a buffoon, desecrating a house of profound sorrow. He heaps blame upon himself. And his solution to make amends is it's the most Hercules thing ever.
It really is.
He doesn't write a letter of apology. He literally says, "I will find that old fellow, Death. I will crack his body between my arms until he gives her to me."
Incredible.
He goes to her tomb, waits for the Grim Reaper to show up, physically wrestles Death to submission, and brings Alcestis back to life.
And that is exactly what Euripides wanted to highlight. It is the ultimate psychological portrait of this hero. Blundering stupidity, followed immediately by a quick, bottomless penitence, backed up by the absolute confidence that not even death itself is a match for his physical strength.
Does he even understand what death is? Or is death just another guy to punch in the face?
To him, yeah. He doesn't conceptualize death as a metaphysical boundary that mortals cross. He views death as just a bouncer at a club that he needs to overpower.
It's unbelievable. But that exact mindset, his absolute reliance on physical domination, coupled with his careless, impulsive actions from the past, is exactly what weaves a trap that he cannot punch his way out of.
Yes. We finally arrive at the tragic irony of his demise.
So skip ahead. The labors are done, but he's still making careless mistakes. He accidentally kills a boy at a feast just by shoving him too hard.
Which is just so typical for him.
Right. He wages a petty war against a king named Eurytus, destroys his city, kills the king, and takes the king's daughter, Princess Iole, captive. He sends this beautiful young captive back to his own home, where his devoted wife, Deianira, is waiting.
And this is where the past catches up to him.
How so?
Years prior, shortly after Hercules and Deianira were married, they had to cross a river. A centaur named Nessus offered to carry Deianira across.
Okay.
Now, centaurs represent wild, untamed, primal urges. Halfway across, Nessus attempts to assault her. Hercules, hearing her scream, shoots Nessus from the far bank with an arrow.
But those arrows were dipped in the toxic blood of the Hydra from his second labor.
Exactly. So as the poison courses through the centaur, Nessus uses his dying breath to lay a trap. He tells Deianira to gather some of his blood. He lies, claiming it is a powerful magical love charm.
Oh, no.
He tells her, if Hercules ever loves another woman more than you, anoint his clothes with this blood, and his heart will return to you.
So, cut back to the present. Deianira sees this beautiful, young, captive Princess Iole arrive at her home. She is terrified she's being replaced.
Naturally.
She remembers the centaur's blood. Believing she is saving her marriage, she takes a splendid ceremonial robe, rubs the dark blood into the fabric, and sends it to Hercules.
The moment Hercules puts the robe on, the dormant poison of the Hydra, his own poison, from his own weapon activates.
Oh, man.
The robe clings to his skin like burning acid. He is thrown into an unquenchable screaming agony. In his blind pain, he grabs the innocent messenger who brought the robe and literally hurls him off a cliff into the sea.
But here's the terrible climax. The poison that would have instantly killed a normal mortal couldn't kill Hercules. His body was simply too strong.
Right.
He was trapped in a state of eternal agonizing torture. Nothing on earth could defeat him physically, so he was forced to defeat himself.
He recognizes that he's beaten. He orders a massive pyre of wood to be built on Mount Oeta. He is carried up there, and the ancient sources note that as they lift his burning body onto the wood, he lay down on it like a guest lying down at a banquet table.
Wow.
He looks at the flames and says, "This is rest. This is the end." And he orders his young follower to light the fire.
It is such a profound irony. The man who strangled lions, diverted rivers, and outwitted titans was brought down by a misguided magic trick and the unintended consequences of his own violent past.
Yeah.
His physical strength was the very thing keeping him trapped in pain.
The myths do say that from the flames his soul ascended to heaven. He was finally reconciled with Hera, married her daughter Hebe, and supposedly found eternal peace among the gods.
Eternal peace.
But this raises an important question, and it's the exact insight Hamilton leaves us with. Knowing everything we now know about his psychology, is it possible to imagine a soul that's restless, contentedly enjoying peace? Or allowing the blessed gods to enjoy theirs either?
He's probably up there right now challenging Zeus to an arm wrestling match.
Most likely.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? We started by saying Hercules isn't a role model. You certainly shouldn't emulate his anger or his impulsivity.
Definitely not.
But his story is a profound lesson on the dangers of immense capability lacking mindfulness. And conversely, it highlights the universally redeeming quality of taking ultimate responsibility for your mistakes.
Absolutely.
Think about how you handle a bad day. Next time you make a mess of things, remember you don't have to literally wrestle death to fix it, but you do have to own the consequences.
I think the most provocative thought to walk away with revolves around what we truly value. If Hercules had possessed greatness of mind along with his greatness of soul, he would have been the perfect hero.
Right.
In our modern world, constantly overwhelmed by information, we place a massive premium on intellect. We elevate great minds who can think and talk their way out of complex problems.
We do.
But have we lost our appreciation for the sheer, irrational greatness of soul? That raw, unflinching willingness to simply step into the arena and act to make things right, no matter the personal cost.
That is something to think about the next time you picture a hero. Maybe they don't need a spotless breastplate or a perfect moral compass. Maybe they just need the courage to look at their own blood-stained hands and decide to do the impossible to make it right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.